Now, governance expert Professor Angelo Dube joins us for more as we continue to get that reaction. A very good evening to you, Professor Dube. Thank you so much for your time. A lot has been said in the wake of the President Cyril Ramaphosa's call to action. Political parties, as the week had taken its course, had been calling for Senzo Mchunu head and really looking to see that President Cyril Ramaphosa takes decisive action this evening. What's your reaction?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Indeed, the reaction of the president is a welcome move because the calls have been resounding. They've been getting louder and louder for the president to show, that he's in charge. And indeed, he did do that. You will recall that the president decried the actions or the allegations as allegations that erode the rule of law. So he needed to show that he himself is in tune with the rule of law. He couldn't simply fire the minister as some people had been calling for him to be fired. There has to be a process. So the president ensured that that process is followed simply by quickly putting the minister on special leave, making sure that he's away from the process. He can't interfere with the process while the commission that he set up investigates and brings the interim report and the final report before Parliament and the Chief Justice.
Are you confident in the work that the commission is set to conduct as, it brings this matter to book and that, recommendations are made and in fact implemented and that action is taken? Because a lot of criticism has come from that last part of the commission, various commission of inquiry's work, that the recommendations are put down on paper and nothing happens.
Look, a lot can be said, but we hope that this one will prove us wrong. What's interesting is that some of the recommendations that they can make, recommendations on criminality, in other words, recommendations to undertake criminal prosecutions against particular individuals or companies that are involved, as well as disciplinary proceedings against those who are in the civil service who are perhaps involved in these acts of criminality. As to whether this will eventually see the light of day in terms of the implementation of these recommendations, that that will be seen in due course. But what needs to be clear in the minds of the public is that the enforcement of recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry, given their almost non-binding nature, is not the role of one individual or one department in government. It is the role of all the arms of government. The judiciary needs to oversee this process. The executive needs to oversee this process, and so does Parliament. Parliament has many mechanisms that it can use to call those who are implicated, those who are expected to carry out the recommendations that are given by the Commission, and inquire of them what is holding up the implementation of those recommendations. So it's a multi-pronged process. It's not just a singular process that belongs to one department only.
Just before you and I spoke, I was speaking to the South African Police Union, talking about the reaction following Feroz Kachalia being put into the acting position of police minister. We know that in 2022, President Cyril Ramaphosa had actually appointed him to chair a 9-member National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council to advise government and prevent any recurrence of state capture. What do we know about Feroz Kachalia? Is he the right candidate to step in at a time such as this?
The choice was very strategic. President Ramaphosa, I know many people expected that because now that we're operating within the context of the GNU, the president is likely going perhaps to look at appeasing one or more of the contesting parties within the GNU, but he did not do that. He went for someone who's been in the civil service before as an MEC in community safety, in the community safety sector, which is Professor Kachalia. He does not necessarily bring what he brings on the table is not just his stint in the civil service, but also legal expertise coming from the practice of law within academia in the past. So there's a lot that he brings on the table is more of a neutral party than one would have expected. People expected that the president would try and perhaps give a slice of this ministry to one or more of the parties that are within the GNU, but he did not do so. So his move to appoint the professor was indeed a strategic one.
Do you think the president's announcements this evening inspire some sort of confidence when one has to look at the ripple effects that we've seen since these damning allegations were made exactly a week ago by KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and as we look to see the expectation when it comes to justice being brought to book?
What needed to be done was for the implicated minister to be removed from the picture so that the investigation is not impeded by any interference from his side. Mm-hmm. And the president's move did exactly that. But again, if you look at the timelines that he gave for the commission, the interim reports expected at 3 months and 6 months means that the committee cannot begin to work today and then report whenever it wants. In the next 3 months, they need to come to the president. In fact, they need to report to the president with actionable outcomes. Within those 3 months, they must show what they have done. Because one of the things that they have power to do is to make interim findings for the suspension of other individuals implicated, so those individuals also removed from the process or from the picture in order to avoid interference with the process. Remember, the president only dealt with the suspension of the minister. There are other implicated senior officers whom the president did not address himself to. It should be the work of this committee in the interim to recommend the suspension of any individual who is implicated, whose presence might hinder the work of the commission. So I think there couldn't have been a better response from the president than the one that he gave tonight. He needed to respond in a manner that upholds the rule of law. He needed to avoid being haphazard in his response, to show that he is structured in his response. He abides by the rule of law and constitutionalism. He suspends those who need to be suspended. He brings in expertise, being the Justice Madlala and the 2 senior counsel who are going to be assisting him to deal with this matter. I know that many people think perhaps this is a political intervention, but it's not, because those who are driving the commission come from a legal perspective, and we know that it is that legal expertise which is required for this commission to actually bear fruit.
Thank you so much. That line not holding so great towards the end there, but we do thank you for your time, governance expert Professor Angelo Dube.